With the NBA trade deadline right around the corner, with just a little over a month to go, there have been so many NBA trade rumors, and the Boston Celtics are in the mix of it, as a new report coming out says the Celtics could be looking to add some potential front court depth. We'll be breaking down Jake Fisher's report, looking at potential pieces that the Celtics could go after in the front court, and how they would acquire them, and how impactful they would be on this team. All of that and more to explore on this episode of Celtics Digest. I'm Bruce Veliz. But before we dive into any Boston Celtics content, I would like to say that roughly right around 80% of our viewers are not subscribed, and we greatly appreciate it if you guys hit that big old red subscribe button and join the Celtics Digest family. We're getting closer and closer to our goal of 3,000 subscribers, so if you want to make sure you stay up to date on daily Boston Celtics content, make sure to hit that subscribe button and join the family. You definitely won't regret it. But let's dive into the news at hand today. So make sure to grab a snack and get ready to go, as today is going to be a jam-packed episode as we dive in looking at some Celtics news. And we'll be looking at how the Celtics are interested in some front court depth. And like I mentioned in the intro, a reporter in Jake Fisher from the Yahoo Sports came out with a bunch of reports over the NBA as the trade deadline is coming up, and he had a little bit to say about the Boston Celtics. Now, this post here is from the Toronto Raptors Reddit, in which it says that Jake Fisher said the Celtics definitely would like to add and find guys in the front court behind Porzingis and Al Horford. As much as I love Kornet and they love Luke Kornet, there's limited salaries there in Boston. And even though Boston has been interested in someone like Chris Boucher, the Celtics have liked him for a while. His $11.7 million contract will be tough for the Boston Celtics to go and acquire. And obviously, Fisher says you're going to have to give up someone good to go and get someone good. And that is tough for the Boston Celtics, as like we mentioned, they have a little bit of a salary problem with this roster. Obviously, signing Kristaps Porzingis, bringing his $37 million contract and signing him to a $30 million extension, and giving Jaylen Brown that big contract last summer makes the Celtics have a tight window with their contracts. Jrue Holiday's on a $43 million contract that's going to have to get restructured. Derrick White is going to be looking for an extension in the summer that is going to be giving him a little bit more money, and Jayson Tatum is going to be looking for his extension as well. So the Boston Celtics have a lot to worry about with that money problem. The only contract that they have that is kind of tradable is Al Horford, and like in this article mentioned on Celtics Reddit, Al Horford is an impactful piece for the Celtics, and they cannot let go of him. But a guy in Chris Boucher could be a guy the Boston Celtics look and potentially go out and get. So we're here to break this down. Obviously, going after Chris Boucher would mean the Celtics would have to give up some pieces, give up a low-value contract, maybe toss an Al Horford. Maybe Al Horford goes to a 3-team deal or just finishes out his deal on the Toronto Raptors. But let's look and see Chris Boucher's stats for the season. Chris Boucher is averaging 6.3 points, 3.9 total rebounds, and 0.4 assists on 46.9% shooting from the field, 34% shooting from three, and around 73% shooting from the free throw. Boucher has had a bigger and more impactful role with the Toronto Raptors in the past when he was playing a little bit of small ball 5, and when Pascal Siakam was a little bit of their 5 as well, so Boucher was playing the 4 or 5 alongside of him, or maybe being the bench 4 or 5. But with obviously getting Scotty Barnes, Jakob Poeltl, obviously having that influx of wings in Toronto, Chris Boucher has kind of fallen down the ladder. They also have gotten other guys for their bench. They got Jalen McDaniels, who's a young guy. They got Otto Porter, Thaddeus Young. They do have a log jam of forwards and centers in there. So it is tough for a guy like Chris Boucher to kind of find some minutes, especially if he's kind of like a mediocre guy that's kind of just been all right, but hasn't really proven himself to be an impactful player for this roster. If we want to look at his splits as well, you can see from his game log summary that in 3 of the total games that he's played under 9 minutes. In most games, he's played between 10 to 19, and in some games with some injuries, he's probably been expected to play 20 to 29 minutes. So a Chris Boucher type of minute restriction on a daily night is between 10 to 19 minutes, which isn't the greatest, but it's still some valuable minutes off the bench in most of his contests. And in most of those contests, he's not putting up that many great points and not really putting up the greatest numbers. So it is looking a little bit rough if the Celtics were to look after a guy, Chris Boucher. I don't know if he would be the solution, just because the Boston Celtics, like I mentioned, would have to give up a lot of other things. They'd have to give up a guy in Al Horford with another guy in, Svi Mykhailiuk, Dalano, Banton, Lamar Stevens, one of those other smaller-esque contracts. And I don't know if that's necessarily what the Celtics need to do. I think if the Boston Celtics are going to look to make a front court acquisition, they should definitely be inclined to use the TPE that they received over the summer from the Grant Williams move. And I believe that that is the only move that the Boston Celtics truly can make. Trading a guy like Payton Pritchard on his poison pill contract is going to be way too difficult. If they want to trade and move off of Payton Pritchard, wait till the offseason once the extension fully kicks in. You have his $7 to $8 million contract, but it's a little bit more flexible and it's a little bit easier to deal with. When obviously you can also combine guys like Luke Kornet, fiba, Luke, Dalano, Banton, Lamar Stevens as well, and that could get you a player. But then you're going to have to call up some G League guys like J.D. Davison, DJ Stewart, or Jordan Walsh to kind of fill out the end of the bench. And in the nights where you have some injuries or are playing in back-to-backs, some of those guys are going to have to get called up and play. And in an impactful game versus an impactful team, that's not what the Celtics are probably looking for. They want some established veterans already on the team. So I think the one addition the Celtics need to look to be making is with this Grant Williams TPE. If it is to bring in a guard, if it is to bring in a wing, if it is to bring in a front court piece, whatever it is, the Celtics should look to use that. And I have two guys here to break down that I think the Celtics could possibly use that to go after. First one being Xavier Tillman. And Xavier Tillman, I want to say, before I break down Xavier Tillman, shout out to Rob, who always in our comments is always there, breaking down who he thinks the Celtics should go after and get. One of the guys he thinks the Celtics should go get is Xavier Tillman Sr., and I don't mind Xavier Tillman. I think he's a pretty solid piece, only averaging 5.2 points, 4.4 total rebounds, 1.4 assists, off of worse shooting this season than his career, 38%, 25% from 3, 36% from the free throw. But Xavier Tillman isn't a bad kind of do-it-all type of piece, and kind of be what an Al Horford or younger child version of Jordan Walsh can be, that could be kind of NBA ready for this Boston Celtics team. And maybe this is kind of the direction the Celtics want to go in. Bring in a guy like Xavier Tillman who can kind of learn from Al Horford, learn what he needs to do to figure out all these intangibles, but also getting some valuable minutes and actually earning that role. And then once Al Horford, gets a little bit older next season, maybe Xavier Tillman can kind of take that Al Horford role for himself, and Al Horford can take a little bit of a wrestle role for the Boston Celtics. And when the Celtics look to move off of Al Horford in the future, and that's if Al Horford retires or if Al Horford gets a little too older and wants to go to another team to compete for another championship or for a championship, the Celtics have a replacement for Al Horford that's kind of a similar play style as Al Horford. Another guy that we've mentioned here on Celtics Digest that I'm a huge fan of, that I want the Boston Celtics to look out and get, is a guy in Andre Drummond. Andre Drummond has been playing fantastic for the Chicago Bulls in recent games since he's been adjusted into that starting lineup, and I think he could be a big rebounding player and a big defensive force for the Boston Celtics. Obviously, though, his free throw percentage isn't the greatest, and he can get played out of certain games, so it is a little bit tough for the Boston Celtics if they're to look and acquire a guy in Andre Drummond. A lot of other playoff teams are definitely going to be looking for a big like him to help out, so I think it'll be tough competition, but I think he would love the fit of Boston in playing as a backup big. The Celtics also could look internally to bring up a guy. I know they mentioned that they like a guy in Luke Kornet, but a guy named Skata who's been in the G League, has played a couple games. They've had an open roster spot. He could be that last guy, the open roster spot, to be that last big, and maybe the Celtics potentially use this TPE to go even get a wing or a guard. The Celtics have so many options that they can use, and I want to know your guys' thoughts and opinions. So let me know in the comment section down below who you guys think the Boston Celtics should go out and get, and what kind of contracts would you trade for the Celtics to get them. Personally, like I mentioned in this video, I think the TPE is the safest way for the Boston Celtics to go and acquire someone without obviously hindering the roster, because they won't be able to include anybody in the trade. Boston Celtics should use a couple of their second-round picks that they acquired in this draft from last year with that Grant Williams TPE to go and get a solid bench piece that could be a nice 8th to 9th man to help make this playoff push even more of a successful run. Thank you guys so much for tuning to this episode of Celtics Digest. If you guys are still not subscribed at this point in the video, what are you guys doing? Make sure to hit that subscribe button, as we know you enjoy the content. The Celtics take on the Pacers tonight in an impactful game, and we'll have a post-game breakdown for that as well, so make sure to tune in to that. Thank you guys so much for listening, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out.